Hello, I'm Peter, VK3YE, and haven't done one of these for a while. It might have been at least 12 months, but thought I'd do a general uh, Q&A. Um, well, it's early June, so just started winter, and it has been almost like midwinter. Very cold, so not a lot of portable operating. In fact, very little. Although I might do some. It's a public holiday today here in Melbourne. It's about 20 minutes to 8 in the morning. And hello to Chris. And here we've got one viewer already. So we'll just talk a little bit until we get some more. I've mentioned it on Facebook. If you don't already, follow VK3YE Radio Books on Facebook. But anyway, I might do some portable operation from a location where you can operate from all weather conditions. Might not be the best spot for RF, but that's what we'll have to find out. Whether we can compromise on a poor location for RF, but sheltered, it may well still be able to get contacts and might well be able to go portable. So and have some success. So anyway, that's something I might do this week or so, and might even make a video on it. You never know. Anyway, hello to Technicraft from Germany, and also Italy. IU2QBW. Just thinking of the time in Europe, it would be late evening, I suppose. Maybe not that late, but anyway, just before bedtime. Anyway, I'm. How do I receive? Okay, we've got a question. Great, thank you, Scott. Yep, that's your questions is what keeps this type of video going and more interesting than just boring talking about myself. So, how well do I receive WWV? Pretty good most of the time. Midday is probably the hardest time to get WWV, but early in the morning, late morning, late afternoon is good. Evening, WWV. I get in the evening time. You'd always be able to get it around on 5-10 megahertz, and also now that we're at the high end of the solar cycle, 15 megahertz is also okay in the evening for WWV. So basically, during in the middle of the daytime, you might get it on 10 megahertz, 20 megahertz, 15 and 20 are best. 15 and 20 megahertz are best during the day. CHU, I think that's on about 7 megahertz or thereabouts. I don't often listen to it. It's on some obscure frequency, I think, but you'd easily get that at night. 7 megahertz across the Pacific. It's an over darkness path. You CHU in Canada, you'd get that. So I know I have heard it, but it's not something that I generally listen to. Yeah, no, pretty much. Any time whether I'm portable or at home, I can receive WWV, except maybe in the middle of the day, it might get a bit weak, depending on conditions. Like late morning, you'd get it on 20 megahertz. Which radio is best, Kenwood, ICOM, or Yaesu? Well, the best radio is what you have in front of you. Now, of course, and all those big three, you pretty much can't go wrong. Now, of course, Kenwood, I don't know about their support. Like they sort of don't have a lot in amateur radio. They used to be big in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but Kenwood are not as big as they used to be. So there could be an issue there with service and support and that sort of thing. So not much of a choice of models with Kenwood. But yeah, really the radio is the least important thing of all the things that, what is best? Radio is least important, provided it covers your reasonable frequency. You've got good range of frequencies, sufficient power. Really, there's very little to choose from. Like if you've got a $1,000 or $1,500 transceiver, the difference between, if it puts out 100 watts, the difference between that and something costing $5,000 or $10,000 is very, very small. The things that are far more important is your antenna, the amount of your location. That's also very important. Also, the amount of local noise you have, very, very important for receiving. Some of the more expensive transceivers are better with noise blankers and DSP and receiving that sort of thing. But generally speaking, location, antenna, and also just your activity and operating. Like the best radio is no good if you don't use it. So, hours on the air is really, really important to your success. The more you call, the more success you get. Noise levels at my home QDH, Chris, absolutely terrible. Like S8, S9. My home HF antenna is at the moment down. I should really put it up. Like it's fine for receiving. Like I can hear DX signals on 7 megahertz at night. But it's and I can hear VKs on 7 megahertz and 80 meters, but it's probably 20 dB worse than when I'm portable or whatever. Cheap Chinese SDRs. Technicraft, thank you for your question. Don't really no practical experience. All I can suggest is have a look at the reviews on QRZ and EHAM and there might be issues with support for them. Like you might get lucky or you might not. Question about from Simon on sensitivity and ICOM. Sensitivity on HF really does not matter because really, to test how sensitive a radio is on HF, put it on SSB, plug in your antenna, and if there's any substantial increase in noise, your radio is more than sensitive enough. Like it doesn't matter if it says it's 0.1 microvolt or 0.2. On HF, there's more than enough noise that sensitivity does not matter at all. Signal to noise ratio is important. As for emails with photos, maybe you can put a comment on my Facebook page, VK3YE Radio Books. In fact, there's a thread under here for this Q&A, so put it under there and I'll see it. Chris, have I tried the X-Phase QRM Eliminator? Yes, I haven't. I have built something in the past and it worked. It was fiddly. Basically, for those unfamiliar with them, you've basically got two antennas. You've got your main antenna and you've got another noise antenna, and you put it through inductor and capacitor, a bit like an antenna coupler, but the idea is that you are trying to phase cancel your interference such that if your interference coming from your pickup antenna is out of phase to the interference coming from your desired antenna, then hopefully you can null out the noise and reduce the ambience noise. So there are kits available, but it's basically clever circuit with inductors and variable capacitors, and you twiddle them until you null out the noise. Scott, selectivity is important. For SSB, most radios have crystal filters or DSP equivalents, and they're mostly pretty good. For CW, you want something a bit narrower. Better radios. The older radios, the ones that were based on crystal filters, had a narrow crystal filter. If you don't have that, you can use an audio filter. not quite as good, but a lot better than nothing. DSP radios, of course, you can really narrow things down. So yeah, selectivity is important, but on the other hand, don't discount what the selective filter between your ears. Because you can be listening on a radio that has very poor selectivity according to the numbers, but you can still pick out weak CW signals if you're skilled at doing it. So a skilled operator can offset issues with equipment not being very selective. Simon Borg, what radio do I have? Most often use the Yaesu FT817. Had it for many years. Like there are other rigs like the Ellicraft, but you look at them and they're either more expensive or they've got lots of holes in them. And for the sort of abuse that I give equipment, I would not trust myself with a more expensive transceiver. Some of these rigs like the Ellicraft look like they're designed for people that have everything in nice carry cases and aren't operating in the wind where there's wind and sand and salt water and all that sort of thing. So, okay, Graham, what do you do with transistors from the 70s, AF124, BF254? Well, I'm not familiar with those. I'm guessing that they are audio frequency transistors, so you could just make a, two transistor or one or two transistor audio amplifier. I don't know if they're PNP or NPN. A lot of older transistors are PNP, which means you have to be careful with the polarity. The positive is the ground, and the negative is where you connect the connector to collector to. So yeah, you could just use them as a basic audio amplifier for a crystal set or whatever. Yes. The biasing circuit, though, if they're germanium transistors, some of the germanium transistor amplifiers you see don't even have a bias resistor from the base to the collector. I think there might be a bit of internal leakage. Some of the values are a bit different to if you're using a silicon transistors. So you might want to have a look at old circuits. A little bit different. But they may or may not be very good at RF because the early transistors, were only really audio, and then as they got better, you had transistors that were more suitable for higher and higher frequencies. And if you've just turned on, this is Ask Me Anything, and I'm Peter VK3YE. And just checking the Facebook page. Oh no, one comment. No, that's just from me. That's all right. And yes, I am live. You can build a simple radio because you don't need a bias voltage. It's just like using a germanium diode as an amplified crystal set. Yeah, I have seen I have seen very, very simple crystal, almost like amplified crystal sets. Like some of them just have a diode and then it runs into a transistor for the audio, and you connect your headphones across from the collector to the supply. Chris, have I got a video planned for Pixie Day, July 23rd? No, I haven't. Oh yeah, okay. I see what you've done there. July 23rd, so that's 23rd of the 7th, and of course 7 is for 7023 kilohertz. So yeah, no, I don't have anything in particular. Of course, there are some Pixies or versions of Pixies that come with other crystals. And thank you, Justin. Glad that I inspired you to build a CW transmitter. From Scott Heath, ICOM 905. 905. I think that's the microwave rig, I think. I don't own one. I know that others, like I think Hayden VK7HH has one. I think he's done a video on it. But yeah, apparently, not cheap, but if there's microwave activity in your area, it could be a handy purchase for those into hilltopping and microwaving. Good morning to Andy, or good evening. It probably is over there. Okay, 20 people watching, which is great. Yeah, okay, thank you. Chris, George VK3YE. So I want to shout out to VK3YE's YouTube channel, Art of Electronics. Have a look at it if you haven't. There's stuff on home brewing and QRP and reviving TS520s, which in George's particular case seems to be very, very unreliable. Anyway, hopefully he's having a good spell with it, because he's keeping, blowing things up in it. So yeah, okay. Pixie Day, 7023 CW. Have a listen on that on the 23rd of July. And you might hear people using these tiny little crystal controlled Pixie $10 kit transceivers. As you've noticed, as you might have seen on my website, I'm not a fan of crystal control, especially if you want random contacts. Because if you've got people calling, you want to join them on their frequency, and when you've got very low power, answering CQ calls from others is generally a more successful way of getting contacts, unless than originating CQ calls yourself. There's other cases where contacts are about to finish, and you and again, you want to go to other people's frequencies and give them a call, which you can't do unless you're very lucky and people are on your frequency for the Pixie. However, having said that, when you're activating parks and you don't have a lot of activity in your area, so the frequency is likely to be clear. If you put up a spot on, well, here it's Parks and Peaks, or it's the Parks on the Air website, then you can get people coming to your channel. And for that, crystal control is less of a disadvantage, especially if you're activating a unique park. So that's one possibility is for Pixies is parks on the air. Like if you had a transceiver that just had a few crystals, maybe on 20 meters, maybe on 40 meters, you might be able to get enough contacts. You might be able to get 10 contacts to activate a park. So it is not impossible, I would think, to activate a park just with crystal control. Okay, and thank you, Chris, for the news that the TS520 has been solid for the last 6 months. So sounds like George has fixed the problem there. GMOHUU. Good evening to you. And note 23rd of July, and dust off the Pixies. Yeah, that's one of the things about Pixies. People build them. They might have one or two contacts, and they put them on the shelf, and they might sit for months, if not years, until people occasionally dust them off. They are not a rig that's conducive to frequent operating, especially if you've got other rigs that are frequency agile. If you've just joined, we've been going for about 15 minutes or so. This is Ask Me Anything, and I'm Peter VK3YE. As you might have seen in my recent videos, I have been doing a bit of experimenting with FM receiver chips, or more precisely, FM front-end chips. And I recommend that you sometimes get them in old radios and things, and they can be used as front ends for homebrew receivers. If you haven't seen it already, the video that I put out just recently, yesterday, is where I use a TA7378 as a front end for, in fact, it's almost a direct conversion receiver. I do have to have an external crystal oscillator. It's just a Colpitts one transistor oscillator, but I had that receiving FT8 on 20 meters, and that was very successful. And then I experimented with, I didn't put this in the video, but I had a ceramic resonator oscillator on 7 megahertz using 7.2 meg ceramic resonator, so I could pull it over 150 kilohertz or so, and that was, and I could hear SSB signals on that with one transistor and the old these headphones. Not quite enough volume for weaker signals, but it did work. Okay, there's some questions. Justin, DRA818V. I've got no idea what it is, so can't help you on that. Don't know if it's a transceiver, antenna, whatever. So don't know. Chris, where did I get the 14074 crystal? Now, I got it off eBay. I did a video reviewing them. I will hopefully that they're still selling them. But you could buy it. I think it was a pack of. I think he sent me a pack. It was a guy in the States. He sent me a pack of crystals, and I did a video review. Like there are some FT8 transmitters or transceivers because you can actually build a direct conversion double sideband FT8 transceiver. Now it's not efficient in that half your signal is coming out on the unwanted lower sideband, and the other thing is that your receiver is also covering frequencies that are unwanted because of the audio image, but it does work, and you can probably get more contacts and longer DX with that than if you're making it for double sideband voice. So that can be quite successful. But I have done a video, just trying to find it. I'll just search my own YouTube channel. Here we are. I did a video called, this is 5 years ago, called 8. In fact, I'll see if I can put a link. Okay, there we are. I've just put a link to the review video I did from W6OUT, and now there's a eBay link. Now the eBay link in that video is no longer effective, but probably not surprising as it's 5 years ago. Another supplier, I haven't I haven't checked to see if their crystal list is still if they're selling crystals. Expanded Spectrum Systems rings a bell. They had crystals for CW filters, CW frequencies. Might want to check to see if they've got FT8. Simon asks, do you use a low pass filter? Not sure if that's for transmitters or receivers, but for transmitters, yes, you should use a low pass filter. For receivers, now the receiver that I had receiving FT8 with that chip didn't have a low pass filter. There was one tuned circuit later on in that had a pretty broadband pass, but it did provide some selectivity. If you're near a strong FM broadcast station or AM broadcast station, then, or FM broadcast station especially, then you might need a low pass filter if there's interference getting into your receiver. If it's an AM station, then you might need a high pass filter. Depends on how close you are to strong transmissions. But yeah, it's good construction practice or even better, you could have a band pass filter if you're just making a single band receiver. 26 people, which is great. It's just gone 8 a.m. here in VK3. And if you've just turned on, this is a Q&A, and I'm Peter, VK3YE. Anyway, questions seem to have dried up, so keep asking, or maybe we'll finish fairly soon. As for other projects on the go, I haven't actually done a lot of building lately, but I wouldn't mind. I've pulled the TA78 78, was it? Anyway, I've pulled the receiver that you saw featured in yesterday's video. I've pulled that apart already, and I'm sort of thinking, what I've only got one of those ICs, so I'm thinking, what else can I do with it? And I'm thinking maybe an aircraft band converter. Like if you had an old AM receiver tuned to 1.5 megahertz, if your local oscillator is stable enough, you might have to build it in a nice box. You had that around 120 megahertz. You might be able to use that chip as a converter to hear the aircraft band, maybe even 2 meters as well. I wouldn't mind also rebuilding my Super Regen receiver. This was an aircraft band, portable aircraft band receiver, because you might recall a video I did where I got in a charity shop a Science Fair Tandy Radio Shack VHF receiver, and I was actually able to hear 2-meter FM amateur signals as well as the aircraft band. I did 2 videos on that, and it was surprisingly good for a Super Regen receiver. So maybe I'll build a standalone version of that. Okay, we've got some more questions. Thank you. Yeah, Chris. Okay. AM community broadcast station. Yes. Electric guitar rig. Yes. There'll be, probably some, if you've got wires, and there'll be some rectification in one of the transistors, probably, that can help there. Operating personal beacons in Australia. Well, if you're in attendance, you certainly can. Is there a maximum power? I don't think there is a maximum power. I wouldn't run personal beacons on a narrow band like 10 megahertz. Yeah, especially for a CW, like it's a pretty narrow band. However, you could, if you're into personal beacon stuff, Whisper is good. You can just have that on a single, frequency where they're all transmitting, and you'd only be using a few watts for that. There's no reason why you can't run the full legal power, but most Whisper is low power. SI5351 or AD89850, which one could be used as a sweep generator. I have built stuff with the SI5351. I think you can probably use either of them. I haven't looked at a sweep generator circuit. Steve GM0HUU, what antenna is used most often for portable QRP? When the solar cycle was low, I mostly used an end-fed wire about 20 meters long, and that required a 9-meter squid pole and gave good performance on 7 and 14 megahertz, and lesser extent on the higher bands. More recently, pretty much all my portable operating has been parks on the air, especially from beaches, as here in Australia, they've expanded parks on the air to include beaches, and there's huge number near me that I've activated. And because there's so many, and some of them are only a few hundred meters from each other, my priority has been to try and activate as many beaches as I can. So normally in an operating session of several hours, I might activate 4 or 5 beaches all in one go. And so that requires an antenna. First of all, if you're right on the sand with there might be other people and dogs around, you want an antenna with a very small footprint. And as we're now at the higher part of the solar cycle, The higher HF bands, you can get contacts, even if they're only FT8 contacts in the middle of the day. That's okay for activating a beach. So I've tended to use just a vertical antenna on a fishing pole about 6 or 7 meters tall, because that will be okay above about 10 megahertz and above. It'll be okay, and it will be very much a compromise on 7 megahertz. It's too short, but there's usually enough operators around on set who can hear me on 7 megahertz. Yeah, so I can still have 7 meg SSB contacts with that. It won't be as good as with a 20-meter wire, but just as a vertical bit of wire that's very easy to set up, you're not having to tie off to a tree or anywhere like that, then that's what I've generally used most recently. 2200 meters, Chris, have I played with it? Not for transmitting. I have for receiving once. I know that Drew Diamond VK3XU years ago had tried experimenting a signal there, and I could hear him from here. I think it was with my converter that I had that's got a ferrite rod in it. Not quite as good as 630 meters. That was actually the strongest band of the lot. That was stronger than 160 meters. Have I played with Loafer 170 kilohertz? No, I haven't. No. When I get my HF antenna back up, I would like to do something with 630 meters. Like I have already been heard by Jordan VK3ACU. It's funny because he couldn't hear me when I set up from the beach, but when I set up from here, he could. Oh no, that's the and the odd thing is I could actually hear him better from here amongst suburbia than I could from the beach. So yeah, there's 630 meters as real possibilities. What is my home HF antenna? I've got a 10-meter horizontal dipole that's up at the moment. That's for 10 meters, so 28 megahertz only. The G5RV is down, but I should put it back up. Although, having said that, right now I am transmitting on Whisper. Go to whisper.net and you'll see me using a Zactec, and that's on several bands, and that's just using just the feed line at the moment on a spider beam pole. So that's a vertical about 9 or 10 meters tall. I don't have all sections up. So yeah, that's just a very makeshift vertical with an antenna coupler at the bottom. It's because the wires at the top have fallen off. So that's what I'm using at the moment. But I should really put the wires back up again, and have a proper HF antenna. Okay. What happened to HF antenna? Yeah, just blew down in the wind. Because I'm using a spider beam pole and that flexes around in the wind, and the wires broke. So I just need to solder them. In fact, I need some new wires. The wires have sort of oxidized and got all wet. So I think I actually bought an old extension cable, and that's in the shed. So I think I've actually got enough wire. So that will be about 15 meters aside, which I can fit in this yard. Okay, 27 viewers, so that's pretty good. Ask me anything. I'm VK3YE. And I think I'm up to date with all the questions. Okay, played with magnetic loops. No, not lately. Oh, actually, I'm just trying to think. When was my last video on a magnetic loop? I think it might have been 6 meters. It was probably some POTA activation from a beach. It was possibly with FT8. I just went down to the beach with the little loop. In fact, I can show you that area. There's some loops behind me right now. That's the smaller one. And hello to M0NTV. Any plans for a future project? Maybe some more with the with that SI7878. Not as good as the 7858, because with the latter, it seems to be more easier later section on HF, but the 7878, we should be able to use it on FM because that's in the design sheet. Is an FM receiver chip, so possibilities of using it there. Chris, do I have the 40-meter loop I made years ago? No, I don't. No, that was the big one with the coax cable capacitor. No, I sold it. It was just taking up time, and it would have been okay if I was in an apartment and didn't have anything else as an alternative. In fact, I would have used it as my primary antenna if I was in an apartment. But luckily, I'm not. I do have space for an outside antenna, so I didn't need that big loop. But I just saw I do have other loops still. All right. We've been going for 36 minutes, so there's it's 8:15 here, so I think I might wrap it up unless there are any last-minute questions. I keep getting ads midstream. Yeah, there was an option with the ads thing. I selected, I think it was called conservative. Anyway, it was the least ads. So yeah, I tried to select it the lowest possible, but it seemed that there's still ads regardless. Now, as for other web streams, I will just. I think there might be another for those who can't get enough video streams. Um, um, I can find a link to it. Oops, so I'm not responding. Okay. Just have to be a little bit patient here. Okay, it's not wanting to play, but anyway, have a look. Was able to fit pitch late tomorrow. I don't care. But yeah, if I don't think so, I think I'll work it into the ground until it dies. Anyway, the stream is glitching, so I think we'll finish it up. Thanks all for participating and all the questions, and you can catch up on the stream later on as well. So enjoy the rest of the day and good DX. And there's another stream from VK7HH Ham Radio DX starting, I think, at 9 p.m. So that's in about 40 minutes. So if you've got more questions to ask, then have then watch that in about 40 minutes. Thank you, and 73.